Shalom all, Stacy the Black Feather Intuitive, and welcome to another segment of Black Feather Couture, Divining a VIP Life. And I'm so excited to be connecting with all of you today to do kind of an interesting take on Nelson Mandela in honor of Mandela Day and his birthday on July 18th. And just super excited to be tapping into a figure that represents so much of what I feel personally is near and dear to my heart, which is freedom for all, equality, diversity for all. Also, I want to say his passion and his perseverance. Nobody should have to go through what he went through, and yet he did. And I feel that it is it's an emblem for all of us to emulate, to appreciate, and to express gratitude to. So that is the intention today. And of course, I have my wonderful cohort, Keone. How are you, Keone?
I'm doing good. You knew you couldn't do this episode without me.
No, I definitely could not. I mean, well, I just can't do anything without my cohort. But yeah, of course, this one
That
definitely
sounds like a raise. I'm just kidding. Place is like, no, leave me alone.
Stop it. We were just talking about that off camera before we started the show. I'm like, listen, he was joking about, you need your black friend on here to do this or that or the other thing. I'm like, listen, I'm colorblind. I don't see any of that stuff. Like, I just don't even think about that. And then I'm like, oh shit, like I don't want someone to think I'm, misappropriating something or that I'm trying to whatever. Like, I'm just like,
people
I'm a soul person. I like your soul.
People will turn anything to anything. If anybody has an issue, always remember this: she's really Canadian, so she's fine. She's not born and bred American. She's Canadian, so
right. Maybe. Well, I mean, there's wherever people are, there's going to be.
Yeah, I know. There's just certain things you think about people from certain regions. So even though we know those people exist, when you think of Canadians, the first thing that comes to mind is nice, polite. You don't think other things. When you think of certain regions of the country, I mean, it can be stereotypical. When you think Japan, you think smart. When you think England, you think about the language. You think about elegance, even though that's not everyone in England. It's just the way the accent rolls.
Yes, the proper. Everything is proper.
Yeah, I can say something and it sounds totally stupid, and an English person can say the same exact thing and it sounds intelligent.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I love that. That's awesome.
So my people in England, in the UK, go ahead and comment when you watch this video and tell me if that's true. I know you may not hear it the same, but I say garbage and they say rubbish. It already sounds better.
Yes.
They
just have a way of making everything just that much better. Even when they say gobsmacked, I'm just gobsmacked. I'm gobsmacked. You're like, okay, well, that's a really big word. If I say gobsmacked, you're going to look at me and be like, what's gobsmacked?
The band, Godsmacked. What's the other one? It's like if I say, Stacey, are you crazy? And they go, are you mental? So it's totally different. But anyway, back to what we're doing. It's the day of Nelson Mandela. It's Nelson Mandela Day, which is really amazing because people normally have days depicted in their country based on things or people they're honoring throughout their history. There's not a whole lot of people who are recognized as a day by the UN worldwide, and Nelson Mandela is one of those days. So we're honoring the wisdom, strength, and legacy of the global beacon of justice. So Stacey, let's just get right into our first card pull. This card reveals the deeper energy that fueled his purpose. The deeper energy that fueled his purpose. What core soul essence did Nelson Mandela embody in his lifetime?
Interesting. 9 of Swords, breaking out of the nightmare. And it's so fascinating because of all of the cards in the tarot, especially the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, the 9 of Swords always makes me think of being in a jail. The 8 of Swords and the 9 of Swords. It's like being in a jail cell. And I think that's really fitting that we pulled this card. So, this man was wrongfully imprisoned for so many years just for speaking truth. He continued to fight for truth. He did not lose. I'm sure he had moments where he was feeling like he was going cuckoo, but he did not lose the faith. And I feel like the Nine of Swords is coming up. This is the card that says you go to sleep in a nightmare and you wake up, you have a dream, a nightmare, and then you wake up and you're still in the nightmare. So it's that never-ending cycle, right? And it also indicates getting caught up in your head, overthinking, lots of thoughts, obtrusive thoughts coming into your space and your place. From a soul contract perspective, he signed on to do this great thing so that we as a society could learn from it. So it was always in his kind of genetic makeup. It was in his life path that this was going to occur. And he survived and he's thriving as a result of it, right? So I feel like that soul path energy, we need to honor him. We need to say thank you and be so grateful to him for choosing this path, because this was not an easy one to take. I mean, losing, what was it? I don't even know. Was it 40 years of his life that he lost, or 20 years of his life that he lost? I mean, it was just insane. That we say he lost it in from a freedom perspective. Clearly, he still had a life behind bars. But that's not the way you want to live. And I feel that he broke a lot of barriers for us from a soul perspective. And the fact that he's still alive and kicking, or that, he has lived a really long time after that horrific experience, is a true testament to all of us to say, no matter what you've got going on, you can live through it. You can get onto the other side of it. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. And at the end of the day, the soul is here for the experience. I often say the soul doesn't judge. We judge. We give everything a good or a bad, checklist. This was good. This was bad. I'd do this again. I wouldn't do that again. And oh, you can't do that because this or this or this. The soul doesn't care about any of that. The soul is just here for whatever the experience is going to be, and it takes it in and it absorbs it and it learns from the experience. Okay, I had this experience. So how did I feel about it? Is it something I'd like to do again? If I had it to do over again, would I do it differently? That's where the soul's perspective comes from. And I feel like that is the wisdom that he is imparting to all of us in his journey. Don't give up hope. You can get out of the nightmare. Absolutely. And it's also not judging the nightmare.
So Nelson Mandela, he spent 27 years in jail, and he died, I think, 2013 in December. I don't know the exact day, but he died in December of 2013. So he literally spent 27 years in jail. A lot of people around the world thought he was dead. That's what came up with the Mandela effect. We've all heard the Mandela effect. You say something enough times, and it gets ingrained in your brain, and you believe it to be true, even though it's not true.
I have a psychic take on that.
On the Mandela effect?
Yes. Would you like to hear the psychic take on that?
I sure would.
All right. So I am in the camp that has a very distinct memory of Mandela dying in jail, dying in prison. And I don't know how many years ago, it was, when all of a sudden I heard that he's alive and he's free and he's this and he's that. And I mean, it made my heart so happy. It also confused the fuck out of me, because I was like, but wait, I remember watching the news, watching it on TV, and just being so sad about this man dying, right? So the psychic explanation of this is that we jump timelines, and I happen to jump a timeline. That's what the Mandela effect is from a psychic perspective, is an understanding and an awareness that, we're multidimensional beings. And it's kind of like having a parallel life. When you and I are faced with a choice, and choose, chose to do this video. We chose to do this reading, and this is the path that we chose. There's another version of us that chose a different option. And so that an option is going on and living its life and it's doing its thing. And every once in a while, those parallel lives kind of bleed through, or you as a soul decide you want to jump to a different time. So I'm glad that I jumped to a timeline where Nelson Mandela was alive and released from prison and all the things and the stuff. But that wasn't always my experience. So I definitely jumped a timeline. So there you go.
I've said this to you before. Mine is less spiritual and more culturally, because when me and you talked about it, I laughed because I said, where I'm from, most people who looked like me knew he was alive, and most of my friends who didn't look like me thought he was dead. So I think it was more of an investment in what's happening thing too. But the timeline thing does work, especially if you're someone like me who believes in parallel universe, because there's one universe where I'm not even doing this. I'm asleep still right now, and you're calling my phone asking me where am I.
Where the hell are you? Are we recording today?
So that's happening too. Let's get into question number 2. A reflection on how he alchemized pain into power. What did Mandela teach us about patience, resilience, and faith through struggle? Because some people also don't understand, you don't have to be religious to have faith. Not saying he wasn't. You don't have to be religious to have faith.
Yeah, I often use the word trust instead of faith. But it's a similar concept. So we got the Knight of Cups. The Knight of Cups is the idealist, the romanticist. He's the dreamer. He's the one who feels into everything. He's the heart. He brings the heart to the situation. Sometimes the Knight of Cups can be a bit, I want to say, unrealistic. Can be, like I said, the idealist. And sometimes that's not always the best way to, make change or to activate something. But you have to start with the idea. You have to start with your heart's desire first. And I want to say that's the beginning of things. And then you can add the flame to the dream. And then it becomes real, right? Then it becomes more tangible. And I feel that's exactly what it was, I can only imagine, I can only extrapolate what it would be like to accept that, okay, this is my daily life, after a year, in prison, or even for me, it would be like 6 days. After 6 days in prison, I would be like, oh my God, like when is the nightmare going to end? And go into a state of complete and utter depression. I'm sure he went through that a number of times, but eventually you get to a place for him. Obviously, he got to a place where he surrendered to what was, but he never let go of the dream. He never let go of the reality that he was wrong. He never let go of the hope and the faith that he would be released, that the truth would be revealed eventually. And he chose to live every single day in that energy. And that's something that I feel that we can all apply to our daily lives, is if he can get through something like that, of course we can, right? Like, it makes our things, and not to play the comparison game, because we're all on our own journey. The Knight of Cups, that was his path, right? His path was to hold the vision, to hold the ideal, to see the dream through to the end. And that was his soul path that his soul chose. You and I, Keone, we've chosen different paths for our souls, right? And the traumas that we have, the experiences that we have, the challenges that we have, the wins, the victories that we have are all deeply and specifically connected to what our soul is wanting to expand into. But I feel that that's really what he's been bringing to the table. And I feel like it's a great thing for each of us to absorb as well, is don't ever kill the dream. yes, dreams die, dreams don't always happen, but the dream itself serves a purpose as well. Let's say that on the timeline that I was on before, where he did die in prison, let's say that actually came to pass. Him holding the faith and having that dream and that vision was serving a purpose in his soul journey. He was learning something. His soul was learning and expanding just by having that dream. Perhaps it was keeping him alive. Perhaps it was um, giving him the opportunity to rewrite his story. Like, we don't know, because each person is on their own individual soul path and journey. So I feel like the message with this is never really let the dream die. The dream may not actually come to pass in the way that you think it is, but it's still, the dream still serves a purpose. And I feel like that's where the faith and the trust comes into the mix. Wow.
It's so amazing is we did the episode earlier in the month for Princess Diana, right? And now we're talking about Nelson Mandela, right?
Yeah.
Two greater of a people to talk about in a single month. And what that made me do was remember this picture right here.
Oh my goodness, that's right.
And I remember it was an article on ABC News. It said Nelson Mandela's family, Madiba, is at home with great friends. So look at those two.
Oh my God, it brings a tear to my eye. Like, it's making me emotional.
Yeah,
Wow.
we lose those two and we get left with Donald Trump. All right. So let's on. Yeah, the good
Your
ones.
lips to FSM's ears, let me tell you.
The good ones always die and you get left with the crap. All right. So legacy in action. I want to go to that question. This card will guide us to integrate Mandela's leadership into real world impact. And so the question is, how can we honor his energy through our everyday choices, words, and service? And I like that it says service instead of sacrifice, which we dived into heavily in the last episode.
Yeah. So I pulled two cards. The first one is the Chariot. The Chariot is a victory card. The Chariot says the victory comes in blending the opposites. So, in this depiction, you're seeing we've got a black crow and we have a white swan, I think it is. An owl. Sorry, a white owl. So they both have their own wisdom. The crow or the raven can travel the underworld, the shadow world, as well as our world. And the snow owl represents wisdom. They both have, and they're throughout the day, right? They live on the planet, they live on the surface, and they're nocturnal, so they don't travel the underworld, but they understand the shadow of the world, and this guy understands the shadow of the psyche. And I feel like what we can learn most about this is there is victory in exploring the shadow, whether that's externally, the shadows that are out there, the darkness, the sadness, the depravity that we witness. And we can also gain a lot from doing the emotional and the internal deep dive to see where things are at with us in that regard. The Chariot is also a card of movement. It is a card that says you are moving from island A to island B. I often talk about this card as like the taxi, right? It's the Uber. You're starting a vacation and you arrive at the airport, you go through your customs or your, whatever you're doing, you get your luggage. And then like you're on vacation, but you can't wait to get to the destination. You can't wait to get to the hotel or the resort or whatever, because that's really where everything's going to get started. But if you had to walk there carrying all of your luggage, it wouldn't be so fun. So you hop into the Uber, and the Uber might be a little stinky. It might be a little crowded. You might have trouble throwing all your luggage in the trunk. You might have to, hold some things on your lap. and you're on vacation, but this is not the way you would want to spend the whole vacation, right? You're grateful to it, but it's also a temporary measure of transportation to get you from point A to point B. And I feel like that is the invitation here, is to recognize that when we are delving with the shadow, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel great. But we get to the other side of it where we can then apply the wisdom and start to have the vacation, start to have the celebration, have the soul growth and expansion that we really are seeking in that way. And I feel like he helped us with that. He taught us that, because man, oh man, I mean, for 27 years, the guy lived in the shadow. He lived in darkness. He lived in the underworld, and he managed to shine his light. He managed to, I want to say he managed to be a light for a lot of people in that prison, as well as across the globe, right? So there's a lot of that energy. Interesting. And then the second card that came out with this one is the Ten of Wands, rewards and the burdens that go with it. His freedom came at a really high cost. There's a lot of his life that he lost out in the free world, right? I mentioned this before. Yes, he had a life in prison, and I don't think it was necessarily all bad. I think he made lemonade out of the lemons as best as he could. But he, more so than anyone else, understands the rewards that come from carrying a great burden on your back. And that is what we can step into and be grateful for. That, you know, he was a soldier in a war that I feel that we all are kind of in to a certain degree. Some of us are not as aware of it. He happened to be kind of in the trenches of it. And what he did for all of us, you know, and I would say it does us a disservice if we don't acknowledge that. And he says, yeah, there's always going to be burden. There's always going to be a price for freedom, for making this world a better place, for standing up for what is just and fair and what should be available to all people. There's burden that comes with that, but there's also the freedom. And I don't know. I mean, I never met the man, but I can tell you right now, I bet you every single day he woke up when he was in his own bed with his family, even through all the trauma, he woke up from the dream, the reality, the dream of being back in a place that he had been in for so long, and then laying in that bed, heart racing and pounding, and coming to the realization, oh, I'm safe. I'm here. That's no longer my life. I can close the chapter on that. He lived in that reward, and he lived it well. And I think that's something we can all really lean into.
Let's talk about this one. And this is an important one because it talks, and I love, because we were doing this with the celebrity ones, where we talk about things that relate to everyone. We did it with Diana, with relationships. We did it with Marilyn Monroe. We did it with Walter Mercado. And we're going to do it with Nelson Mandela. And so the question came, breaking the inner chains. Where are we still imprisoned in our own minds and systems? And how do we rise? So this card calls out the limitations we're ready to liberate ourselves from. So, and everyone out there, this is not just talking about imprisonment. This is talking about being a prisoner of your mind as well. Because I think the last few episodes we've talked about trauma, things you deal with in your childhood, and it has those thoughts and confidences imprisoned back there in your mind. So how do we help ourselves with that? And we can learn to help ourselves with that from what Nelson Mandela did.
Absolutely. We've pulled the Knight of Coins, and I find that fascinating that we had the Knight of Cups and now we've got the Knight of Coins. The Knight of Coins is the slowest knight in the deck. He's reliable, but he's slow. And I just cannot help but make the comparison here that the Knight of Coins is a great representation of the system, right? No matter what country you're in, there is a system, and it's often the system and the structure of the system that gets in the way of you getting what you need in a quick and efficient way. I can speak to you as a dual citizen, Canadian and American. It doesn't matter what country you're in. When you have to fill out your paperwork from a governmental perspective, you want to pull your hair out by the roots because everything is in triplicate. The website makes no sense. There's they tell you to go to one place and you go there and the information that you need is not there. Just getting on the phone to try and talk to someone. I just did it the other day. I was on the phone for 4.5 hours. Most of that time was wait time to get to speak to someone. And then to resolve a very simple problem, it was 1 hour and 15 minutes. The system is the problem. And I'm going to say to you, people who create the system are humans, right? The human is the problem. Let me feel important. Let me overcomplicate something so that I can feel important. And you get a ton of humans that want to feel important with their lane and their little piece of the pie. And so the complication is through the roof. And I feel like in Nelson Mandela's case, from a legal perspective, yes, there was a lot of suppression and a lot of just like wrong shit that was going down. But there were also, I want to say, legal proceedings that were happening as well that were extremely slow. And I'm thinking in terms of here in the US, similar stuff where you've got, they say it's a fair trial and a speedy trial and due process and justice for all and all the rest of it. There's no such thing as a speedy trial here in the US. I know many years ago, I was hit in a vehicle. I was hit by a drunk driver. It was a DUI situation. And it took me 2 years to get resolve. I had no choice but to go through the legal system to get money back, right? For all the money that I had to pay out for my injury and my recovery and, all the things and the stuff. 2 years it took before there was resolve on that. That's not, speedy justice, right? And that's just one tiny, aspect of things. So I feel like this is really what's coming through. And what we can learn from this is tearing down this complication, tearing down let's, just take our time. We're not going to pay attention to the fact that this person, a crisis on this person's part does not necessarily constitute a crisis on mine. And we can stand back and say, well, hey, that's just the way it is. That's the system, don't shoot the messenger. This is the way it is, right? I feel like this is what we need to release because that man was in prison for 27 years. It did not need to be that way. Now, granted, in his case, like I said, there was a lot of suppression. There was a lot of, just bad stuff. There were just bad people keeping him in there, right? So it's a little bit different, but it's the same kind of idea. It's the system. Let's tear down the system. And not to put too fine a point on it, we're kind of witnessing that right now in our waking life, in our real now. It's not being done in a way that I support in any way, shape, or form. I will say to you, though, what we're going to be left on the other side of all of this is clear the decks. We've absolutely got to build something new because what was no longer is. And it's like a complete tower moment. There's nothing left. There's nothing left but rubble. And do we want to waste our time and energy sifting through the rubble, or do we want to just start fresh from where we're at right now? That's what the Knight of Coins is representing to us at this time. Wow.
Stacey, I want to show you this picture because I have a story behind it. So
Okay.
this is a picture on my wall. I went to Hobby Lobby to get it framed. It's got Nelson Mandela, Barack Obama, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X in it. And when I went to pay for it, the cashier goes, "Oh my God, this is an amazing family portrait. Is this your family?"
Oh, are you serious?
Yes. Yes, she literally said that. She goes, "Oh my God, this is such a great painting. Is this your family?" And I
Wow.
responded in the only way I possibly could. I said yes.
Yes, exactly. Well, in a way, it is your family because we are
Yeah.
all one. It's my
It's just
family.
like, yeah, I mean, could you not even recognize Barack Obama in the picture?
Oh my God. That's actually frightening to me. And that is such a, I mean, that story right there is just such a statement for why we are in the
Yes,
position that we're in
yes,
right now in
my
the country.
family. That's why I drive a Jeep and I'm shopping at Hobby Lobby. Yes. All right, Stacy. That was
I boycott Hobby Lobby. I absolutely boycott Hobby Lobby. I don't even care if they've got the thing that I need for 57 cents. I will not go anywhere near that place.
why is that?
The way they treat their women,
Oh,
their female workers, I won't support any of that. They're all about that Project 2025 stuff. Handmaid's Tale. No, thank you.
oh yeah, you're definitely right. I was talking about this the other day, and it's appropriate to talk about. Today we're talking about Nelson Mandela. Someone asked me to boycott something the other day, and I actually sat here. I said, you know what? If I, and this is not telling you not to do boycott anything.
Okay.
I said, you know what? If I boycott every company that has either racial, sexual, misogynist, or homophobic views, I'd be, I'd be clothless, foodless, and moneyless. It's like it's
No,
so crazy.
I know, Keone. I'm going through that right now. That's one of the ways that I'm choosing
Yeah.
to use my voice and to protest. And like when I found out that Home Goods also contributed to Project 2025, and like I've boycotted Target because of the DEI, pull away. And I'm recognizing like, okay, I've really had to. Basically, I stopped spending. I stopped buying. I've had to look for mom and pop places
Yeah.
to do things. And you're right. There are times when I'm like crying because I'm like, damn it. Like, damn it.
Yeah,
I really
it's,
want to do this thing, but I'm just not going to do it.
yeah, because you know where I live. I walk outside my door. I live in a plaza, and right next to me is, in eyes view, is Target, Home
Yes.
Goods, and a bunch of restaurants that I shouldn't be going to. But my problem is laziness. That's my
Oh, okay. Laziness will work to protest too. We'll take that.
no. My problem is laziness. It's like, well, I need to go to Walmart, but there's a problem with that, and I'm like, the Target is right here. And
Uh,
the funny part was the very same person that told me to boycott Target, when I snuck over to Target, they were in Target.
oh, seriously? Oh, that's interesting.
Because what happens sometimes, you're like, okay, I need something really quick. I'm gonna do it this one time. You're gonna go in there
Right.
and snap it. But certain places are easy to avoid. Hobby Lobby is an easy place to avoid. Certain places are easy to avoid. But anyway, that was our tribute. Even though I went on a tangent for Nelson
Yeah,
Mandela.
we really did go on a tangent, but I think it's
Right.
fitting because what did Nelson Mandela stand for after he left prison? He stood for freedom for all. He stood for diversity and equality for all, and I feel like that's exactly what. I mean, that's why I choose to boycott. I don't expect you to boycott or anyone else to boycott. That's just how I'm.
Oh
That's
no,
one of the ways I'm choosing to
no,
to do that.
I boycott. I'm just a little more lazy with which ones I am. But no, I
Good for you,
seriously,
right?
I did not go to Target for a good 6 months. Target is literally across the street from me, and I don't even go in there. I
Yeah.
went in Target one time over the last 6 months, and that was to go to the Pizza Hut in the Target.
Oh, sure, right.
Oh, that was for you. Oh, Stacy, take us home.
Oh, okay. So that is our reading and our special tribute to Nelson Mandela for Mandela Day on July 18th. So excited to have had you guys here for this little chit chat and just kind of a little tarot tune in to see what's going on, what's coming up, what's transpiring, and how we can be inspired by these incredible people that have really chosen to live their lives in a way that we can learn from and can thrive if we choose to apply the wisdom. So that is our episode for Black Feather Couture Divining a VIP Life. As always, sending you guys so much love. We will see you on the flip side and transform well.